Hello and welcome into BTN's Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of BTN.com, and although BTN slows down a bit in the summer, this is actually the last weekend of live programming with the Big Ten baseball tournament going on. For a while here at the network, the Take 10 podcast rolls on. We'll continue to deliver episodes as often as we can this summer. We will not slow down or stop here on the Take 10 podcast, so stay tuned for future episodes, and definitely keep it locked for this one. We've got a guest who probably had one of the best nicknames in all of college football and also delivered one of the best upsets in all of college football back in 2007, none other than former Illinois quarterback Juice Williams. Juice was back in his hometown of Chicago this weekend in the BTN studio. He was able to stop by, and he was here mainly to do a Facebook Live sit-down with me where we rewatched a couple of old games from his playing days at Illinois, but I was also able to sit him down for a podcast discussion as well. So we got about 30 minutes of podcast talk coming up here, and definitely check out the Facebook Live we did with Juice as well on the BTN Facebook page, where Juice watched the upset over Ohio State in 2007, where the Illini knocked off the Buckeyes, and a win over Michigan in 2008, when Juice Williams set the Big House record for total yards in that game with 431. So had a lot of fun sitting down and reminiscing with Juice Williams, and we'll get to the podcast discussion here in just a moment. Before we talk with Juice, just a quick reminder that Take 10 Podcast is on iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean, so subscribe on those outlets if you have not already. If you're listening on SoundCloud, hop on over to one of those podcast streaming platforms and subscribe, and leave a rating and review if you like the show as well. And one more reminder, here on the Take 10 Podcast, we do have a promo code on the BTN.com online store for you to take advantage of. It is Take10, capital TAKE 10, and that Take 10 promo code will let you take 10% off any order on the BTN.com online store. So get all your Big Ten gear over on the BTN.com online store and save a little money through the Take 10 podcast while you're at it. All right, so let's get to our interview with none other than Juice Williams, one of the most recognizable Illinois football players of all time, certainly this century. And we talk a good amount about his current undertakings, what he's up to today. He's doing well outside of football, as we'll get to in just a moment. And it's just a really good guy to sit down and talk to, able to pick his brain, and he gets really in-depth in the Facebook Lives, as you'll see if you're able to watch those rehashings of those games. He remembers very well a lot of the technical aspects of football and even individual plays, but he also is very good at explaining, describing some of his memories from his days at Illinois and even before that. So we'll get into plenty here in the next half hour, and I'll stop talking about it so you can listen to the actual thing. So let's get into it right now. It's a Take 10 podcast discussion with Juice Williams. I am very pleased to be joined in Chicago by former Fighting Illini football quarterback. He made a Rose Bowl in his time there. One of the all-time leading yard accruers, yard gainers in Big Ten history. None other than Juice Williams. Juice, what's up, man?
Hey, how we doing, Alex?
I'm doing great. I'm glad you're here. It's cool to sit down next to you after watching you play growing up as both a native of Champaign and a student at Illinois. Many fans listening obviously know about your career at Illinois, but first off, I want to start off on what you've been up to since your playing days, because everyone remembers the Rose Bowl year, the years after that. What have you been up to since Champaign?
Yeah, so I had a bit interesting story, and I'll try to give you the short, sweet, to the point version of it. Upon graduation, I had the opportunity to join the Chicago Bears rookie minicamp as an unsigned free agent. Joining camp, obviously for the people who've tracked me, that appointment with the Bears was short-lived, but got a chance to wear the C. I've been a huge fan growing up. So to wear the Bears helmet, even during that short period of time, was something that I'll forever remember. And I got a chance to meet Coach Lovie Smith, who's currently the coach down in Illinois, for the first time. Great guy. We pretty much developed a bond since that day. So him joining Illinois now is huge. So I was with the Bears for a little bit. From there, I kind of bounced around. I was signed up to Canada preseason going into 2011. Opted out of that because I had a little girl at the time. In fact, I had a little girl when I had another one on the way, my son Layden. Man, my current girlfriend at the time was like 7 months pregnant. I just didn't want to go to Canada. So I just played arena football a little bit for, the next, 3 to 4 years. Myself and Illinois teammate Daniel Dufresne from the Chicago Slaughter. So we played there, really loved the game, had a great time with it. You really start to appreciate football as you see it, played in a different light and with different rules and things like that. And I actually had the opportunity to play wide receiver for a season. And ironically, and I probably should have entertained that thought a little bit upon graduation, I led the league in reception yards, and touchdowns. Wow. First time ever playing receiver.
Wow.
And I've done it just...
So you had that natural gift.
Yeah, you watch enough receivers, you throw enough routes, right? So, but the biggest thing was, as a quarterback, I understand holes in the defense, and I know where the zones, the soft spots in the zone, so I knew how to just get there and just make myself visible. And we had a pretty good year that year, so that was a lot of fun. Then I had the opportunity to go back in 2014 to join the Fighting Illini football staff as director, former player, and high school relations. And great experience. I got a chance to see college football from a staff perspective. Again, just another appreciation of the sport, because you see, how much work the coaching staff actually put in, the time away from you spend with your families. You dedicate that to the guys on the team. So it was a great experience. I got a chance to be around some of those good guys, some of the guys whom are currently playing in the NFL now. And but from there, my wife and I, we decided to make a transition from Champaign to Washington, D.C. She ran track at undergrad at Georgetown, and she was on the job market to become a professor in Georgetown Law. And it's kind of hard to say, as great as Illinois is, it's kind of hard to say no to Georgetown Law.
Can't really turn it down, right?
Yeah. So the opportunity, took us to D.C. And now I am in the finance world as a financial advisor. Life is great. We have a 9-month-old daughter named Layla, which gives me a total of 3. So life is good, man. Just living in D.C. and I get back to Chicago all the time. But a lot of my family and friends are still here, so I'm literally here like once, maybe twice a month. So it's hard. I really haven't had a chance to miss it yet. But DC has been great. DC is awesome at the current moment, and having a blast with life.
Awesome. All right, yeah, Juice, that's awesome. Glad to hear that you're doing well. I know you've been a beloved Illini figure. Those teams are remembered very fondly, even 10 years later. I want to get back into your time playing indoor football, because I feel like that's a space a lot of fans don't know a whole lot about. Once you're kind of off the NFL radar, those leagues aren't as visible. So how did you get involved with an indoor football team, and how many years total did you play, and how did those experiences kind of, I know you mentioned that they really made you love football more, but how did those go, I guess, big picture? Yeah,
so one, I got introduced to indoor football, former teammate Illinois, Daniel Dufresne, because once he left, and he had this stint, I think, with Cincinnati Bengals. Same thing, rookie minicamp. He actually may have made it to training camp in August. But immediately following that, he jumped right into the arena world, and he was doing great with it. So at the time, it was going into maybe, I think, game 9 of that season out of 12, and the quarterback got hurt. So he immediately went to the side and said, "Hey, Juice is still in Champaign. Give him a call. He might be interested." I'd never heard of the Chicago Slaughter, and I'm from Chicago, so It's like, how can I not hear my hometown indoor football?
What I'm saying, yeah.
It's like, what is that? Right? So, he showed some clips online. I was like, all right, it looks fun. I mean, I kind of equated it to arena football. It's slightly different. The rules are slightly different, so it's kind of, you got to be really, really careful how you label indoor and arena football. But very, very similar. So Dufresne was my entryway to get into arena football. Now, overall big picture, quite frankly, it helped me with my sanity, because for a long time, maybe the first year or two out of college, I was frustrated. Just dealing with life and coming to the realization that I'm not playing in the NFL. Because as a kid, you grow up, and myself in particular, I have a dream from, 7 years old all the way up until, I graduated from college to play in the NFL. And especially I have a career like I had at Illinois, break so many records and have, some of these, pivotal wins and things like that. Quite naturally, you think, like, I have a shot. I'll have a legit shot to play in the NFL, at least a few years to kind of get my feet wet and things like that, and create, kind of change the course of my family's life. But I wasn't afforded the opportunity. I struggled with it mentally, to be quite frank with you. So that was my way of having that release and proving to myself that, hey, you can still play. It's just opportunities just may haven't aligned for you, but it's not a knack on your ability. So that allowed me to go out there and showcase it, still have fun with it, play with some great guys, great experience, and that extended, my playing days a little bit.
So when did you hang them up for good? When was the last arena football or indoor football season for you?
Yeah, so my last season, in fact, was 2016. Because when we moved to D.C., there's an indoor team in Pennsylvania, which is like an hour and a half from the city of D.C. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. The Pennsylvania Capitals, that's the name of it. Played for a season. First couple of games just kind of shook the rust off. But again, it's just like I can play. Right. I can still play. It's still the dominant force, and being able to go out there and make a ton of plays, and had a lot of fun with the sport, with the game. But that was the last season I played, so 2 years ago. To be honest with you, again, we just speaking, quite frankly. So right now, former teammate from University of Illinois, Chris Duval, wide receiver for me.
Sure.
He's currently playing for the Washington Veilers, the arena football team. And I just went to the game last weekend. It's always hard to go and watch a game like that, especially when you can play. He's kind of nudged me like, "Hey, Juice, I need my quarterback. And it's right, and it'd be so accessible because I'm right there in the city. So
I mean, you look like you can still play. You're coming in. You look like you just stepped off the field in Illinois. So,
I try to keep it together. I'm trying to hang on to my youth. I just turned 30 this past November. So I'm trying to hang on to that 25-year-old body and try to hang on to that to as long as possible.
If you hop back in the game, we'll have the scoop here. So
yeah, absolutely.
So you're a financial advisor. Is it Merrill Lynch now?
Yes, at Merrill Lynch.
All right. So was it hard to kind of let go of football and slide into more of a desk job, or was it a natural transition for you?
Yeah, it's tough. Like I said, during that period of the frustration period, you just kind of in a space where you think your life should be one way, and you just kind of stuck there for a while. But I had to come to terms with myself and just be honest, like, all right, yes, I can sit here and soak in this sort of misery and stay here for the rest of my life. Or, you learn from the experience and you move on to the next thing. So as I start, get further away from my college years, that transitioned over into, the desk job or corporate America, I like to explain it. It became a lot smoother. So I started to find things that I was good at, started to find things that kept my attention that I wanted to, that inspired me. It kind of, I found the game within that, and it led to finance. And now, it's something that I'm excited about. It's a lot of things that I could transition over from football to the professional world. And, it's a lot of fun. I'm able to help families out, small businesses out, and things like that. And, get them create a certain piece of, financial freedom and a peace of mind for them in their situation. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
That's awesome. So in this building, you're Juice Williams. Out there, you might be Isaiah Williams, but how often do you get recognized, even out in D.C., as, hey, that's Juice Williams?
All the time, mainly because, Illinois has some crazy number of, I think, 8,000 or 9,000 living alums in the DMV area. So it's very easy to bump into someone and say, "Hey, I'm Isaiah Williams." And most people don't just like, "Oh, Isaiah, nice to meet you, Isaiah." Mm-hmm. But you start to have a conversation, you start to dig into them a little bit. Yeah, so where you go undergrad? So I played football at University of Illinois. And they pause, so they wait. Mm-hmm. What years did you play? And I tell them, it's like, "Oh, you're Juice." So it always comes out in that regard.
Even if they're not Illinois guys. Like,
absolutely. Just football fans.
Ohio State or Michigan fans that remember you as well. So, all right, so you got your post-grad days pretty well covered in D.C. now. I want to take it back to your pre-Illinois days a little bit, though. And we take it back as early as possible, because I remember this urban legend when you were playing was just how big of a baby you were. You were like 13 pounds or something coming out the womb.
Right.
So is that true? What's the official number, and how serious was that as being that big of a baby just from a physical standpoint?
Yeah, 13 pounds, 8 ounces is what I was told. Of course, I can't verify it because I was a little too young to even understand numbers. 13 pounds, 8 ounces. My mom had me via cesarean section. That was my entryway into the world. And you ask my mom, she recognized something unique there, because all of her children were on the larger side, but I by far was the biggest one. And just like even just my days of just crawling around and just moving throughout the house, she often telling me stories of how a little bit further advanced I was in terms of starting to walk in my earlier months, and just being a little bit more ambitious in terms of like going out and just playing activities and taking chances, taking risks and things like that. And as far as the as far as I can remember from that standpoint, I always loved sports. My older brother, Rashard Haynes, who's 8 years older than me, and he played football. In fact, he played quarterback, which is the reason why I played quarterback. He pretty much introduced me to the sport, and he pretty much taught me the sport until I was in the place where I was able to go out there and start to learn on my own. And I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with the strategy. I fell in love with the contact. And, of course, being in Chicago, the sport is basketball. Like, if you grow up as a kid in Chicago, basketball should be the sport, which I still played, but it was just something about the contact and, the brotherhood you have in the locker room and things like that. And that sort of just took off as my go-to sport. Definitely.
And you went to the same high school in Chicago. It's legendary Dick Butkus, Chicago Vocational Academy. What kind of presence did his, aura or legacy have at that school with you coming up through that football program?
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, you talk about one of the, not one of the best in terms of school history. He's one of the best in sport history, arguably the best linebacker to ever play. And for what I hear, just amazing stories how, speaking about his character, how much of a great guy he was. And then, ironically, he goes to the University of Illinois, has a dominant career there, and goes and, makes history in the NFL. So, my thing is, what other person to idolize in the sport, with someone from the alma mater, from high school and college. Now, if I could change anything, I would like to have seen Dick Butkus play quarterback, but him being, a linebacker and, playing, I think he played center too at Illinois. He really created a pathway for me to come from Chicago Vocational and go to the University of Illinois with an easy transition and speak highly of the university. So it's a guy I try to stay in touch with as much as I can. I know he lives out in California now, but he's been an inspiration in high school. He's still an inspiration to me to this day.
Yeah, you and Dick Butkus kind of had similar trajectories career-wise as far as you both got there when the program was not in a good place and had a quick turnaround, went to a Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
And now the program's kind of in a similar place that it was before both of you guys got there, with the 2-win seasons and not a lot of success going on down there. So why did you end up choosing Illinois? Why did you decide to stay home?
Yeah, so I look beyond, the current status of the program. Like, yes, Illinois was struggling. Honestly, I asked myself, why am I even staying firm to this commitment right now? Because I think we went 2-9 that year, the year I was my senior year of high school. But I look beyond that. I saw something within the coaching staff because, at the end of the day, those are the folks you build a relationship with, you're going to know for the rest of your life. Those are the people who you're going to be around, who's going to train, who's going to help groom you from a young boy into a man. Academically, Illinois comes second to none. Great curriculum, great support, great resources at the university. And, on a personal level, I had the opportunity to play early as a freshman. Ever since, flag football, Pop Warner, I've always been able to go out there and play. I've always been a starter. And I knew that'll be an adjustment if I had to go somewhere and wait 2 or 3 years to have opportunity to play. I didn't necessarily want to take that route. So I had the opportunity to do that. University of Illinois, they were the first school to come in and offer me a scholarship. And it just worked. And from there, once I committed, I started to recruit, people who I've met sort of through the different Nike camps and other in-state guys. And we started to get a bunch of people on board. We started to get, guys like Chris James and Vontae Davis and Jeff Cumberland and and all those guys. They jumped in the wagon with me, and we started to create a pretty powerful, dynamic recruiting class. And that led to 2007's class, 2008's class. So we started to build something, and I guess the rest of Illinois history speaks for itself. And
Illinois fans listening now can kind of hear the pattern that's similar to what you just mentioned that's developing now with.
Yeah.
Ironically, not only a great quarterback committing and kind of that excitement around the program building and recruits talking to each other, but the guy's name is Isaiah Williams.
Yeah.
This recruit out of St. Louis that committed out of the 2019 class that's on the way. What did you think about, or what did you feel when you first heard that there's a dude, a quarterback, 5 stars like yourself, you were a very highly rated recruit, coming up and considering Illinois, and then once he committed, I saw you reaching out on social media and all that. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I think, like you said, I immediately kind of reverted back to my experience of going through the recruiting process. And I remember it's just yes, it's not record-wise. I probably could go somewhere else that's a little bit better, that has a current sort of track record of being a successful winning program. But, if I found, value in the University of Illinois for whatever reason, and I immediately thought that, hey, this kid is doing exactly the same thing, so I would love to encourage that. to see someone take a leap of faith, a guy who could pretty much go anywhere in the country, decide to go to University of Illinois, get there, make a commitment early, and dedicate himself to, pulling other guys and jumping on with them. That's exactly what I did coming through the process, like I just mentioned. So, I mean, if anything, it's one of the things I mentioned to him when I had the opportunity to meet him, say, hey, you can't do this thing alone, and if you really want to be successful, football is a sport. You need your teammates. You got to have an offensive line. You got to have a dynamic running back. You got to have receivers going to catch the ball for you. So, if that means you try to pull other guys with you, you absolutely do that. I mean, I think that's smart and intelligent to do it. You've done it and you've committed early enough to pick up make up some ground in terms of recruiting the recruiting space, because you got 9 months into signing day, so you could really cover some ground doing so. So I think hopefully he finds the value in that. He understands that you really can't do it without your teammates. You really start to get other guys on the bandwagon as well.
All right, for sure. So hopping back to your freshman year, you mentioned playing time was a big draw for you. In 2006, you guys were 2-10, but you kind of see the flashes there, and I think the biggest one was that Michigan State game. There was the Ohio State game that was close, but the Michigan State game you actually won on the road at East Lansing, and you guys were really kind of climbing out of the cellar. So when did you look around and kind of realize that, okay, there's some potential here for a turnaround as soon as next season, like we saw?
Yeah, it was probably the Michigan State game, because we lost a few nail biters early on. I think we beat Eastern Illinois the first game of the year. We got pummeled at Rutgers. We lost a close one to Syracuse at home. We got beat up on a little bit. My first start against Iowa that year, I had a horrible, probably my worst game in college. Played against Iowa, I think I threw like 4 interceptions or something like that. But the following game, we come back and we beat Michigan State. And I think from there, Michigan State wasn't a pushover at the time. They had some really good players, really good coaches at the time. And to do it, I think it was homecoming for them too. To go up there to East Lansing and win a game like that, I think for us, it's particularly the younger guys on the team, to say, hey, whether we 18 or 19 years old, like, we can go out here and compete. Of course, it takes a little time and more experience we get, the better we will be. But from that game on, I think we start to, you start to see a shift in how, just how we move, how we bounce around the field, how much confidence that, we projected, on every Saturday. And you start to see that throughout the season. Now, again, we ended up ultimately 2-10 for the year. But you look at some of those games, it was just pure experiences why we were losing some of those nail biters. We go up, we lay an egg in Wisconsin, we up, I think, 20 points, in Madison. We lose that game in the fourth quarter. We lay an egg against Indiana. We up homecoming, we up big in the first quarter. They end up creeping back. Again, just all experience. Ohio State we had on the road. So, you put some experience behind that, we probably win those games. But you start to see that transition and us actually do win those games the following year, which ultimately led to a Rose Bowl.
Absolutely. And you're in studio today. I haven't mentioned it on the podcast yet, but you're here because we're going to be rewatching a couple of games for your playing days. The Ohio State game, which everyone remembers when you upset number 1, and the Michigan game from your junior year where you had a big win at the Big House. So we'll get into those games in depth, so everyone needs to check that out. That'll be on Facebook Live. But I do want to ask you a couple questions on the podcast about that magical season of 2007. What are some of the memories that stick out most vividly for you, just thinking back on that 2007 season, that entire run? It's a broad question, but I feel like most athletes have some vivid memories that stick out. What sticks out to you?
Yeah, so most people, a lot of people talk to from that team will say either the Penn State game or the Wisconsin game. I think I'll take it a little bit further than that. I'll go back into the Missouri game. So a lot of people probably remember that I actually got hurt. I think it was the second quarter of that game. I left the game with a mild concussion.
It's the first game of the year in St. Louis.
First of the game of the year, we was playing Missouri. And I get hurt in the second quarter. Mild concussion, I'm done for the game. And, you probably would expect for, it's like, all right, this game is over. Here we go again. We lose a starting quarterback. But Eddie McGee comes in and goes to work, like, almost immediately. Eddie hadn't played. He redshirted that first year, so he was a redshirt freshman coming up that season. And Eddie pretty much almost led a fourth quarter comeback, against one of the top teams in the country. And from there, it was an eye-opener for me personally to say, hey, you don't slow this train down, because we're on to something big, right? So you getting hurt, you need to recover fast, because we have other guys, not just at quarterback, not just at receiver on defense. We have guys all over the place that's ready to step in and ready to go out there and be dynamic players. So that was really an eye-opener for me. as to, really coming to the, I guess I can say, coming to the office ready to work every single day and giving it my all. And, that really started it for me, say, hey, let's put everything we got into this season because we can do something really special here. But I think everyone as a team, we started to realize and rally around the fact that we were actually a really good team when we beat Penn State, who was ranked number 13 at the time at home. That was Regis' coming out party. He had a kickoff return. He had a huge reception touchdown. He broke like 5 or 6 tackles, something like that. And that's when guys really start to really think like, hey, we can do this. Us beating Wisconsin the following week, number 5 in the country, that was the turning point. It's all right, we're here. We're one of the best teams in the country. Now let's go out here and play. And you see that momentum just, push us all the way through to the Ohio State game. We beat the number 1 team and lead us to a Rose Bowl.
For sure. And I vividly remember those two Penn State game and the Wisconsin game. I was there for those. And, it just kind of had, they're both beautiful days. It was ranked teams coming in. I don't think Memorial Stadium had been like that in a long time.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see why the team would remember those fondly. But it's interesting you mentioned the Missouri game. It was one for you because most fans probably wouldn't expect that. That's why I like to ask those questions because you kind of get that insight. I want to move on to the Rose Bowl, and I know the result was not what you wanted, but what do you remember most about the kind of the pomp and circumstance surrounding the Rose Bowl? Because, it's the granddaddy of them all.
Yeah.
It's always a big deal. It's the most glamorous bowl, I think, and I think most people would agree. What do you most remember about that entire experience and everything leading up to it?
Yeah, so as a football fan, as a football player, yes, the Rose Bowl is the granddaddy of them all. But just saying it does no justice until you actually go out there and you experience it. So I remember us having to report in Champaign on Christmas, which was a little frustrating at the time because Christmas is my favorite holiday. So I had to leave Chicago just to get back to Champaign and be ready to be there for the flight. But, we arrived in Beverly Hills. That's where we were staying in California. And just from there, just from the hotel experience, you have fans everywhere. You have Rose Bowl posters everywhere. You have all this, all the facts about, the Rose Bowl over the years and, just some of the Rose Bowl history and things like that. We had a chance to eat with, I think it was the Rose Bowl pageantry. Mm-hmm. And I actually ate dinner with the Rose Bowl queen at the time. I thought that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool too.
Not to brag, but.
Yeah, not to brag a little, but I think I had everything to do with me being a quarterback. But yeah, just the entire experience is just the tradition, the history. Some of the people, some of the Rose Bowl alums, the presidents of the alums, the parade. You really start to get around and you really start to see how special that game really means, and not just the actual game itself, but the festivities around it. From going to Disney, being a special guest there, to participating in the Beef Bowl at Laurie's, everything like that. So it was a lot of fun. We had a chance to meet a ton of alums that were there local in California. The Dick Buckeses and the David Williams of the world. I actually got a call from Hugh Hefner. Oh, wow. Just out of the blue, just like, hey, congratulations. Of course, it was an invite, but, we opted out of that. But no, it was a great experience. And I remember from the actual game, the moment you kind of come out the tunnel there and you see that view, you see the mountains in the backdrop, and you see 90,000 packed, where for us it was about 35,000 of
there's that whole corner
in attendance, orange in the stands, and it's just like, wow, just like, this is it. We're the only game on in America right now. Everyone's watching this game right now, and for me, I was the quarterback of it, so it was a pretty special moment. And like you said, it wasn't the results that we wanted. That game was a lot closer than the final score indicates, but USC was a good team. You look at that defense. I brag all the time. I played against USC, basically, a.k.a. the Patriots at the time.
Right.
They were that good. So, but we hung in there for a little bit, and just third quarter got a little bit out of hand, and ultimately ended up dropping the ball there. But all in all, great season, great experience, and that's something that we'll ever be able to remember.
Right. I kind of remind people when they talk about that game. Like you said in the third quarter, I think it had potential to be a 21-17 game.
Mm-hmm.
Play didn't go your way, and then the game got out of hand. So who knows what happens if you got
we had 2 fumbles on the goal line, within the 5-yard line, something like that, about to score. I threw an interception in the third quarter, and you can't constantly make those mistakes against a good team like that. So Pete Guerrero he's a mastermind and capitalizing on those mistakes. That's exactly what they did.
All right, so we'll get into a little bit about the season after 2008 season, your junior year, and beyond on the Facebook Live. We'll ask some questions, but we got to get moving here. So I want to ask you about the current state of Illinois football under Lovie Smith. You mentioned you met Lovie when you were trying out for the Bears and you're in their camp. And obviously he's had 2 rough years, but I think the momentum that he's gotten through recruiting has most fans and media thinking that the arrow should be pointed up. So what are your thoughts on the current state of the Illinois program?
Yeah, so I tell people all the time, in terms of turning around a program and getting back to its winning tradition, there aren't guys, and there aren't 2 or 3 guys that's in those leadership chairs that's more fit for that position. So Lovie obviously been a head coach with the football department. You talk about Coach Underwood over in basketball. You talk about Josh Whitman as an AD. I think those 3 guys have the leadership. They have the skill set to turn the program around, because it takes effort from everyone, not just football, just not basketball, things like that, not just administration, but everyone's a holistic effort. And I think those guys are the right individuals in those seats to turn the program around. Football in particular, I think Lovie is making some ground, because you have to recruit. And it's only getting harder when you started talking about, new teams into the Big Ten. I didn't have to worry about, Nebraska. I didn't have to worry about Rutgers or Maryland. But you add those, that takes away from the recruiting piece, right? That's just how much more competitive that the Big Ten recruiting gets. And so it seems he's starting to make some leeway in terms of, grabbing some of the top players in the country. And that'll reflect on the football field. And it takes time. I mean, even next year, you might have, say, Lovie get a top 5 recruiting class. It's not an instant sort of, reflection on the field. Like, that takes time to groom those guys, to get them in the systems, to get them used to a college schedule, get them used to the college game speed, for it to all sort of resonate and start to produce wins. So it'll take some time, and I think he's on the right trajectory in doing so. He has a great staff, great players, great philosophy in place, and I think he has a shot to do it.
If anyone knows how to turn around Illinois football, you do, Juice. So I'm glad you get your input there. All right, last question before we wrap up. I know you're into pop culture. One memory that sticks out is when on Modern Family, when the character Cam, somehow he was supposed to be an Illinois football player, and he came out wearing your jersey. What'd you think when you saw that?
That was pretty cool, and I think I took a picture of it, because I just realized he actually did it in 2 episodes.
Okay.
So the first episode he did it, he was just like, "Hey, we want to watch University of Illinois game." He came out out of the room with my jersey, and I thought that was pretty cool. And more recently, it was another episode. I think it was poolside or something like that. And he had the jersey on again.
Really?
So I
didn't know they did it
really
again.
Cool. It was 2 separate episodes where he did it, so I thought that was pretty cool. And I kind of now my kids are old enough they can see and identify. It's like, "Hey, Dad, that's your jersey." So it was pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, the first one when it happened, that was when Modern Family was really hot. It was popular, and that's when I watched it. I didn't realize it came out again, but that's pretty cool. All right, so Juice, we're gonna get you set up, and we're gonna watch some of those old games on Facebook Live. So I encourage Illini fans listening to tune into that. It'll be up on Facebook for eternity once we wrap it up here. So everyone check that out. But thanks for sitting down before the broadcast to jump on the podcast. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm excited to reminisce about these couple of games. So let's get to it.
All right, let's do it. Thanks once again to Juice for joining me. Really fun dude to sit down and chat with, and it was super engaging, and it's great to see him doing so well post-football as one of the all-time most memorable Illini to ever take the field. And before we sign off here on the Take 10 podcast, I just wanted to bring up something that I actually tweeted about last week that I didn't realize was going on when I released the last episode, but once I look back, I realized it had been just over a year since we launched the Take 10 podcast, so just want to thank all the fans out there for listening and following along throughout now 60 episodes. Not sure when I launched if this thing would last 60 episodes, but it has, and I've really enjoyed doing it, and I have no plans on slowing down or stopping anytime soon. So it's been fun talking to a wide variety of personalities related to Big Ten sports, and I hope you guys have had as much fun listening as I have had pulling it off. So appreciate that. I appreciate Wes White for editing, producing, and helping me out with this throughout the entire run of the Take 10 podcast. So shout out to him as always. And like I said, we'll keep it moving, and I'll talk to you next time here on the Take 10 podcast.